Welcome, everyone. You have come to Optimize Her Too, the amazing podcast here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's episode 14 already on March 3rd, 2026. And with us today, we have not just the amazing person, when I say that, LaQuincia Nichols from experiencecoaching.com out there in Surprise, Arizona. We have an amazing guest speaker with us today, Anna Felix. And Anna, it's fabulous what she does because I can relate so much. She does smart money management. She's a smart money strategist to help you with your money. And I know money is something that we all hold dear, and some of us are out of control with our money. And we're going to talk about all kinds of different things, especially about how social media is quietly influencing how we spend. So, with that, I would also like to say that everyone that appears on our podcast here at Optimize Her Too is a professional. They've had lots of experience, both personal and professional experience. However, we're not the authorities. And if there is something you need to turn to your people to do, especially in the health arena, we want you to go to them. However, we are professionals. If you need additional information, go to those people that you know and trust. And if you want to reach out to us, please, by all means, do so. You can reach out to myself, Barbara E. Ringrose. I'm the founder of Wow Women Optimizing Women. You can find me on my website, Wow Women US, and LaQuincia Nichols at experience-coaching.com. You can find her on her website. She's also a founder and co-creator of Experience Coaching. So with all that being said, Quincy, it's so great to see you again and join in with this exciting new episode of, can you believe it, Optimize Her Too. We're on episode 14.
I know we're old pros at this podcasting thing now, right? I am really excited for today's episode because I think Anna, number one, is going to give us some really great insights on the quiet or sometimes loudness of spending as women. But also I'm excited for her as a strategist and what she's going to offer for us as tools to take away in some learning. So I'm excited for today's episode.
Always, always, always. And I think it's really an important topic, money and spending money and how the influencers, we know the marketers years ago, you watch TV and you got all the advertisement from either the television or from a magazine, but now we're bombarded with stuff. So I'm thinking about, when was the last time you bought something? And something that you had to then justify, because we're always like justifying our poor behaviors, right? Spending being one of them. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I think one thing I can share up front, and I'll love to get Anna's opinion on it. And when we bring her into the conversation, the last thing I bought that I justified to myself, and I'm still sort of buying into what I call cost per use, is something I've given to myself as girl math, but it's my Peloton. If I could switch my camera over, I got bombarded with the internet around COVID. I bought a Peloton. I like it, but was it needed? I don't know, but I'll save my stories for as we bring Anna into the conversation. So let me have the pleasure of sharing with our audience all about Anna Felix. She is a California-based, shout out to my home state, smart money strategist who helps women build wealth smartly, safely, and significantly. After becoming a widow in 2010, so sorry for your loss, Anna, she turned personal loss into purpose, dedicating her work to helping women become financially confident and avoid common financial traps. Anna serves as a financial GPS. I love that. Guiding clients through investments, insurance, beneficiaries, and long-term wealth strategies so they can grow and protect their money with clarity and confidence. Anna, Barbara, and I welcome you to the Optimize Her Too podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you. Love having these conversations because that's what women need. We need to feel confident around our money, and we need to know what we're dealing with and what everyone else is dealing with, and how we can win this game of, not separating ourselves from our money unnecessarily. So happy to be here.
Yeah, so this topic that we were talking about that I mentioned, social media and how it's influencing us. I'm sure you see it all the time. I heard all about it when I was in mortgage. I still hear about it when I speak to ladies all over the world about money and how they're spending it. Can you expand what social media is doing to us, how it's coming about and gotten so out of control?
Well, I don't know if I have all the answers, but the things that I observe is that back in the day, we were aware of what was happening in our neighborhood, in our circle. And now we're not keeping up with the Joneses. We're keeping up with influencers and all the things that we're bombarded with social media. And I just think we are not equipped always to tune that out to the degree that we need to. And so it's the bombardment, and it's things that often we feel we need, and maybe they are really good for us, but it's like, do I really need that? Like, is that something I'm really going to use? Is that something that is going to make a big difference, that I'm 2 years from now I'm going to be really happy that I made that purchase, especially if it's a larger purchase. Like, is that going to truly bring value? And I think we don't have enough time to make that decision, right? We're scrolling and we see it and it looks good and it's exciting, and now it's really the logarithm knows that what it is that we've been talking about, right? So it's tuned into our conversations, and I think that makes it really hard to ignore. I mean, that's the whole strategy behind it.
You just did a little bit of a checklist there. And one of the things that I heard you say is, am I going to need it in a couple of years or in a period of time, depending on what the purchase is? Of course, if it's food, it might be something you need kind of soon. But just going in and asking yourself, when we receive these notices that come across these advertisements that flash up on your screen and they keep coming back, I think the sooner you click off of them, at least that's what I've been starting to do, Anna. Listening to you talk about it, as soon as I see it, I'm clicking it rather than clicking on it. I'm clicking to get rid of it.
Mhm.
No, that's really a smart thing to do. And the other thing that I always recommend, and I do it myself, is I really want this thing. And again, I'm not talking about it may not just be an article of clothing or something that you eat, but it might be something that's more cost to it. I say, think about it for 24 hours. Like, you didn't need it 5 minutes ago, right? That wasn't something you were that you were thinking about. So it's not one of those things that you absolutely have to have. Just give yourself a day and think about, am I really going to use it? Like, yes, it's a really good thing, but will I use it? Will it really fit into my lifestyle? Is it something that I'm prepared to really begin using? And then after a day, if you still feel as excited as you did when you first saw that, then maybe you should go ahead and purchase that. And I think maybe twice I've come back a day later and been like, yeah, I'm just as excited about it. By then I've like, nah, that's not something I'm really going to incorporate, or that's not something I'm really going to do. And I have really found that to be very helpful for myself, to just, how I feel about it right now is really generally not going to be how I feel about it in 24 hours. And I think that that's a huge help.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I
an
think.
excellent. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bart.
Nope. I think an excellent thing to impress on people in some of the things I've learned from some of the ladies. Wow, take a look at your bank statement. Laura Fournier, for instance, is someone who reintroduced this to me. Take a look at your bank statement. What have you been spending your money on? Do you have clothes in your closet that still have the tags on them and you've never even tried them on? These are just a couple of tips, I think, in addition to what you're talking about, which are very, very important. That 24-hour rule, I love that one.
Me too. I
Yeah.
think because it's one of those buffers, right? A little small sort of discipline you can put in place to just say, hey, let me have a self check. Is this something, to your earlier point, Anna, right? It's no longer just about keeping up with the Joneses. Like, how easy would it be right now to just have to keep up with your blog? I remember when I was younger, having those sort of instant purchases was left like at the grocery store at checkout, right? Those sort of impulse purchases. Now, everything around you is an impulse purchase. And when I think about my spending, I am a sucker for the little app on my phone that has a brown shopping cart, right? And Big Daddy Jeff can bring it to my house, same day delivery. Do I
Yeah.
need this? Right. But it's so quick and easy to purchase. I don't need to go
Um,
get a bank card. I don't need to do anything. They have all the information. I just need to say yes. And saying yes they make it very, very easy.
And that is, I think that's one of the biggest things is that it is just so easy. And the whole idea, I mean, think about it. They're selling something. So they want to make that super easy to do. They don't want you to think about it. Like
Yeah.
the whole idea is to remove the friction of thinking and having to go get the card and having to. And so all of that is just so easy and we fall into it so easily. And that's what I think the key is creating the friction. Like, don't have an automatic card on your phone. Like, don't, as much friction as you can create
Mhm.
between you and saying yes is huge. And that's a thing that I tell my clients all the time when we talk about, how much money do I have a month, that I can put towards my retirement or whatever plan we're putting together. They often don't even know their number. Like, how much discretionary income do I have in a month to put aside towards something? And it's because they don't know their number, right? Like, Barb, you mentioned looking at your bank statement. So, how many things, how many programs am I a part of that I pay on a monthly basis that just automatically come out of my account that I don't even know about? I can tell you, I had a gal I met with a couple of years ago, and I was telling her, I think just based on the things that you're saying, like, someone has this much of an income level, and then at the end of the month, they're like, yeah, I don't really have that much left over. And so my question is, so where is that going? Like, we've accounted for mortgage, we've accounted for all the things. Where is that money going? And she was kind of like, well, I don't really know. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at the bank statement. Okay, so in her case, she had $300 was coming out of her account for things that she wasn't using, for things that she no longer remembered. That thing, like it's free for 2 months and then it's $49.95 after that. Those type of subscription things. She was appalled. Like some of those things had been coming out of her account for like 5 years, not
Yeah.
even using them. Complete.
Guilty.
$3,600 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's huge. It can be huge. I mean, not everyone falls into that. So that's my other tip. I mean, maybe it's something you need and in 2 months you can get the need for it and you can cancel it. When you sign up for it, put something in your calendar that tells you what day you need to cancel that
Absolutely.
so that it is there. And because come on, we're going to forget. Like I'm totally going to forget
Mhm.
2 months from now that I signed up for this thing. Right. So again, we're creating that friction of, maybe I want to try it and maybe I decide not to cancel it, but I need to see it come up in my calendar and I'm making that decision. Oh yeah, that worked really well. Like I enjoyed that service. It is what it says it is, and it's going to save me this down the line, whatever the case may be. Yes, I want that coming out of my account. But if it isn't what you thought it was, or it's not bringing you the value you thought, then now you have the time to look at that and say, "Oh, I'm going to cancel that today because I don't want, to be charged for something that I'm not using." So that can be another huge thing. It's just, I call it holes in our money bucket, right? It's just
Mm.
things we don't realize are coming out, and it just it is sabotaging, our ability to take care of our money the way we want to,
Right.
because the influencers and all those things are telling us otherwise.
It's
Absolutely.
interesting. This optimizer too, much like what Quincy and I do in our professional world and what we've done in our previous world in the corporate arena is about educating, elevating, and empower people. And we chose, for the most part, to empower women and educate and elevate them. And I think it's important that women understand money. That's one thing that I see over and over again, that women don't take that very seriously. Is that what you're seeing over in what you do too, Anna?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's um uh, women are starting to realize that they absolutely need to be in control of their money. It's just that we haven't always been given those tools. And that was absolutely my case as well. I mean, growing up, my family never talked about investing. It wasn't a conversation we had. And I always say, if you look at even things that are printed in magazines about investing and you look at how it's formatted towards men
Yeah.
generally 80% of the time. And so it's not always a subject that women are comfortable with, but that's okay. That's what these conversations are about. It's like, let's start doing that. Let's start holding each other accountable, and we love going out and shopping together and doing all that. It's not about not spending your money. It's about doing it consciously. And
Mm.
what we're addressing today are all of the unconscious things that are happening, because another thing that's new to our world is we're going to social media just for like emotional regulation at night, right? Like we're done with the day, we're tired, and we pull out the phone and we're looking at this stuff and we're just decompressing from the day. I'm calling it emotional regulation. But while we're doing that, we are being subjected to all of these things that are telling us your life needs to look like this, and you need to
Yeah.
have freedom, and you need to have all these things. And so while we're trying to just de-stress, we're also having to make or not make these conscious decisions. And so I think being aware of that, I know as we were talking about some of the topics that we could be engaging in, we realize this is a really important subject. And this is starting, young women, high school age, like they are spending at a rate that we never did. I mean, I never did. I mean, we never had that much. It's on your phone. There's no, you're not pulling out money out of your
Hmm.
wallet to make a purchase. So you don't feel it, right? It's a swipe. Now it's on your phone. So there's no time to think about it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think for, some of the younger people who listen and, I think about my niece often comes up on this podcast for some reason. But she's a younger kid and her entire life has pretty much been a digital or a cashless society, right? And so to that effect of I remember what it felt like to hold a quarter in my hand, to have a dollar in my pocket, to have 5 ones, right? And what it felt like to give those to someone else. And I only have two left. Like we don't go through that process of the sort of the debit and the crediting of our own accounts because to your point, it's just a swipe, right? And having to explain to her, well, listen, someone has to put the money back in there. Like I don't just wake up and it's there, right? We're not at that life just yet. However, that feeling of this actually has a value, right? I think sometimes gets a little bit lost because it is very easy to earn or make money for certain people. And I just don't think they've had to have as much conscious thought around the actual value and using that money as a tool. And to your point, not using it as sort of like a social cope, right? Just to retail therapy, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a huge difference.
You
You
mentioned
know,
the $300. Imagine if they would have, Anna, taken that $300, that same $300 and invest it. I know they would be shocked to see if they could get a rate of return of 6 to 8% even on that
Hmm.
kind of money where they would be. Do you typically then go and after you have this discussion with them, say, okay, so you're spending $300 a month. Do you encourage them, since they've been affording to pay for that, do you encourage them to then, let's say, make an investment with that money?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, because then to your point, look at what we can create over time. And of course, it depends on, their age and what their goals are and what we're doing. That's going to be very tailored to them. But yeah, I mean, in this gal's case, she was like, realizing what she'd missed out for like those 5 years of I mean, even if she put that in a high yield savings account, I mean, even if something as low as that, I mean, what she could have done with that. So and to your point, Quincy, about value, that's the thing. Like, what can this $49.95 a month thing here doesn't feel huge, but then you got to think about over time, what is that doing? Like, what does that add up to? And what value is there? And so if we start to and I am such a proponent of starting as early as possible. I mean, I often go into junior high and high schools and talk about money and saving it and investing it and what it can do for your future and spending it wisely because yes, there's a lot of things that we want to spend. Some people, I feel like this younger generation is a little bit more into experiences and freedom. That's more of a thing that it was, when I was growing up. And so all of those things are valid, but you just need to figure out how, what is my future self going to think about this decision that I'm making now? Will she be happy that I've decided to do this? And again, it's that taking that time to think about, what is this going to mean? Right now, this seems like just a small little thing, but over time, what can I accomplish with that? And that's why I feel like, just the financial literacy is so important because showing, what if I take this amount of money and I let it grow to your point, Barbara, 5, 6% compound interest, like what can that turn into? And when you look at those numbers, it's crazy the difference that can make. I think I just did, I want to say it was like $23 a day is like $10,000 a year,
Mhm.
something along those lines. When you put it out that way, you're like, "Whoa, that's huge." Like, that's a huge amount of money. And really thinking about what I could be doing with that if I'm making that decision to, well, I want to fund my future self too. I want to have fun today. I want to enjoy these things, but I can't do it all if I'm not thinking about what that could mean for my future and then making that decision. And as long as you're having that dialogue, now it makes, a really big difference. I have several tools that I use to help clients with growing their savings faster. And I had a client that the idea behind this is that you pool all your money into one place and then it's called Currents. It's an app. And then um, you make that conscious decision to then pull that money out to go make that purchase. Again, I'm always trying to help create friction in the spending process. And so this is a gal that her thing is purses. She loves purses. And so she has a collection of them. You too, right?
Yes.
And that's cool. That's totally fine. But once she started on this journey, like her and her husband had said, we haven't been able to save like anything at all. Like we've just been really having trouble with it. And so I felt like this particular tool would be really good for them. And so we pulled that together and in several months they were starting to see what they call this reservoir growing. And she was like, "Wow, this is pretty cool." I wanna say they had like $43,000 in there, and they had traditionally not been able to be saving money, and so they were seeing that it was just really they were spending way more than they realized, and so
Mhm.
she told me, she said, "I'm gonna get this bag," and I even forget what kind it was, but it was like, a $4,000 purchase.
My goodness.
And and so she was like, which normally she would have never even thought about.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You know what? I'm really second guessing that decision. I don't think I need another purse right now." Because what she was doing was she was now calculating, hey, that reservoir is going to go down by $4,000. And I kind of like that it's sitting in there right now. And so I don't think I'm going to actually get that purse at this point in time. And I was like, good for you. I mean, the thing is, it's your choice, right? But when you create that space of, is this really the wisest thing? Do I need it? Whatever. I was surprised. I did not think that was going to happen for her, but yeah, she was definitely thinking we have come so far in this last 6 months doing this. I don't want to make that purchase. And that's the difference of someone that before would have never even thought about this.
And that's
Yeah.
why it's an investment in time and self here too. So these things don't occur overnight. And one of the things as humans, as animals, we're releasing certain hormones. So as we're making those instantaneous purchases and so forth, there's all of this stuff going on. We have dopamine that's
Mhm.
being triggered out there.
Mhm.
And that dopamine is the one that gives you all that pleasure seeking that you're looking for. And I think it's important to note that by doing that, you're stimulating a part of by buying that $4,000 purse, you're stimulating a part of you that the brain is very happy with. However, your purse isn't. And I think that's a
Mhm.
good an analogy when people look at how much money they're spending, when they use things like, oh, I deserve it. No, you don't deserve to take that money that's in that little bucket that you have worked so hard for in the last 6 months with Anna Felix. And then now you've reduced it to like 2/3 of what it should be. No, you don't deserve that. And I think we need to learn some discipline because without that, that's going to take you to the bankruptcy court or even worse, lose your home and so forth. Gamblers, it's almost like an addiction, isn't it?
Absolutely. I can remember, for me, and I think it was a lot of women similar to the age range when I entered sort of the corporate world, right, in the business world, that number one, you got your bag because you were probably getting some sort of annual or quarterly bonus. And if you worked in sales, then sometimes
Mhm.
money was just sort of dripping from the ceiling sometimes. So it was very common in my workplace to see women carrying anywhere from a $2,500 bag on up to 10 or $12,000 if we're talking, different Chanel type bags or whatever that may be. So I remember, going through my own sort of learning and growing and maturity process of, well, okay, I have this great bag, right? And I adore all the ones that I have. But we were also sort of sold, I remember being told, well, it's an investment, right? And actually, it's kind of one of the worst investments that you can make. I think, I'm so against it now because, there's a lot of different counterfeit culture. Things have changed to where they just don't hold the value in the way that they used to. And they can be passed down through legacy. And I don't want to belabor the point. But what I'm saying is, I think for a lot of us, we weren't taught what to do when we start making this money, right?
No,
Who
we
are you
weren't.
having these
We really
conversations
weren't.
with? And and for a lot of women, they are outpacing what their parents were as earners as sometimes.
Mhm.
So sometimes your family didn't have, you're coming from a family history of low education on, good financial habits. So Anna, what would you give as a tip to that woman who's probably, maybe entering the career space or, making some sort of a pivot and now you are making substantially more money than you had ever been exposed to before? What's one good tip that you would say for her to sort of start out and to be able to think strategically about her money saving habits?
Yeah, and I love that. That's such a good distinction, Quincy. Not knowing what to do, and that's the thing. I always say a good rule is the 50-30-20 rule.
Yeah.
So 50% of your money should be going for your living expenses, like your mortgage, your insurance, all the have tos. And then 30% should be going for your future. So that's where you're putting that money aside for the future year. And then 20% is for fun. I mean, I feel like, we got to have fun now. We got to, be planning those trips and those things. So if you do the math, and maybe when you start off, you can't get all your expenses into the 50%. That's okay. Like figure out what your percentage is, but you want to start increasing that as much as you can until you get into that 30% that you're putting away for the future. And we don't think of that way. We don't realize, we don't know the best places to be putting it. What does that look like? Okay, I'm putting away to my future self, but what can that be? And I help women create tax-free banks for their future. That's always
Yeah.
exciting. So once they know, okay, it's money that I'm going to be able to access later, but if I put it here and I grow it and now later it's going to be tax free to me, this is awesome. I just didn't know the vehicle that I could put it in. So I think realizing that those percentages and start to play with those where, always putting away some money. And again, I'm a big proponent of you got to have that fund of fun for your trips and yourself and all those things. But tomorrow is never guaranteed for any of us. And so you need to be putting some of that stuff away for later so that you can continue this lifestyle. And as you're growing, that's what's nice about this. As you're making more and you're increasing and all of those things, those same numbers still work, right? Like it's just you modify based on what you're doing and where you're at.
That's interesting because
Thank you.
ultimately we're looking for freedom, and people talk about independence. And here in the United States, when we talk about independence, a lot of times I think it's misconstrued, and we think that we're independent, we're our own island. Well, that's all well and good, but we all know ultimately we're connected. Social media is really not connecting us. We know that. Social media, as we've said, is actually taking money from us, not putting money in our pockets. So, truly, if you want financial freedom, if you want financial independence, it's important to connect with someone so you can have these conversations. It's not a one time situation, it's something that you need to talk over a period of time to see what your progress is, your developmental growth, to take a look and be structured, to be disciplined. And with this spending, where do you see it going with these ladies that you have, or I'm sure you consult with some men as well, but where do you see it going with them in the future since you're spending so much time with them? Does their desire to spend actually go down as you work with them through this process?
Yeah, what I have noticed is just like that example, there's an awareness of what I'm doing now is definitely affecting what my future could be. And I don't want to be mad at at myself in the future and be like, oh, you should have done that. So yeah, I think it's a more conscious, and it's an awareness of, wow, I was doing this before. And, most people come and meet with me because they are concerned about the future. They're just not sure, what path to take. And now it's like, okay, I'm aware of what is possible and what I can do. I just need to modify, how I'm spending to become more aware of it, know your numbers. And people hate the words like budgets and things like that. And it's not about that. It's not about spreadsheets. I mean, some people love that, and that's fine if that's what you like, but it's just being consciously aware of what I'm doing today and how that can affect my tomorrow, and the things that I can do in the interim that could make such a big difference. Because we want to enjoy life now, but we also need to be conscious of what our future needs are going to be as well. And so when I talk about being a financial GPS, I mean, obviously things happen in people's lives that they don't anticipate. And so we have to move and pivot. And maybe I say for parents, like there's couples, their careers are great. And then all of a sudden now they're parents. And so they're not going to be able to be putting aside the same amount of money that they were putting aside before, because now they're parents. This is another time in their life. They want to enjoy these things to the fullest. So you have to make adjustments, and being aware of just what I can do, what's possible, and then where I am right now. And maybe, you're able to fund it more right now, then something happens and you have to make those changes. That's okay. But knowing what you want to do, knowing what your goal is, if you have the goal in mind and how to reach it, then even if you have to stop here or pivot or make a few changes, the goal didn't change. You just now have to maybe wait a little bit longer, or you're going to have to fund more later, but right now you're going to do this other thing. It's having that plan in place and the view and the goal in mind, and then as things happen we can navigate that. But that's the difference than to be like, well, I want to plan for my future, but I have no idea what step 1 is, right? And that's
Hmm.
that's where a lot of us are. That's where I was 15 years ago. So I understand there's that. If I don't know what to do, then what do? I just continue not doing what I need to be doing. But once I become aware of that, then now I know what steps to take. And so that can make the big difference of just knowing.
Clearly, money is emotional. It's driven by things like our hormones. We're only human. But then to take a look at our money and see, you mentioned the B word, budget. And I think for some
Yeah.
people, they have no clue even how much they're making. And I learned over time that people didn't know what gross meant or what net meant. Net is the amount of money that you receive actually in your bank account from your employer, or net after, if you're in small business, after your expenses, then what is your money that you have left over, if you want to put it in those terms. I think it's important to understand the emotions, what it's doing, understanding the amount of money that you may be wasting on things that going to the big box stores, for instance, and buying things because, oh my goodness, I can get 20 of these if I buy this, and then I don't have to buy it for a while. And then we end up throwing it in the trash. That's another big waster. Being careful about our portions. You mentioned about the 24-hour rule, is what I claimed it. Waiting
Hmm.
24 hours instead of making a bigger decision, maybe any amount over 100 or 500 or 1,000, whatever it happens to
Right.
be, setting yourself on limits so that you can take a look at these objectively, as opposed
Yeah.
to being knee jerking and emotionally spending because clicking on that button gives you that little release of dopamine, making you feel dopey next month when you get that credit card, or your balance in your checking account or savings account is going
Hmm.
down. These are great tips, Anna. Really, really great tips.
Good.
Good
I'm glad.
conversation.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful. And I've just had the benefit of, speaking to a lot of different folks in different parts of their life, and just realizing that, at the end of the day, that's what we have to do, is just take control of these things, understand that we're being influenced, and, then say, okay, how much am I going to allow that to happen? And to your point, just, it's not about taking away the joy. It's not about, being restrictive. It's just, be aware of this. There are consequences for these things. And, I don't want to later look at, because that's the thing. Like, a lot of times the spending happens, as you're saying, it's emotional, it's the dopamine, it's all that. But then there's that high, and then there's that really big low, right? Because then you're
Hmm.
like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And now what am I going to do? And then, so now
Cycle.
you need another high again. And so, that's just a lot of up and down, when it could just be like, okay, I'm choosing to do this. This is why I'm doing this. And then I'm not feeling bad about it later, because it's the conscious decision, right? Like, I'm not battling myself. I decided I was going to do this, and I've decided it, and that's good. And then I move on from there. And so it really helps regulate everything a whole lot more. Even those folks that don't want to be restricted, they realize later on that it really is a benefit
And
to
you don't
them.
want to be retiring and find out I'm not retiring to anything. And that's interesting
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we're also planning for our future. Anna, how can people get in touch with you? I'm sure they would like to learn a lot more about their finances and get your help.
Yeah, absolutely. On my website is the best place, annafelix.com.
That's Anna
Excellent.
Felix, Felix, like the cat, if some of you know that, .com, AnnaFelix.com. Amazing conversation here today. And I can tell you, viewers, if this has resonated with you, if you feel like you're out of control with your money, if you feel like Optimize Her Too is a great place for people to go, please like, share, and subscribe. And also at Optimize Her Too podcast, you'll be able to see this and many other similar type podcasts from Quincy and I as we go forward. Please, please, please reach out to Anna. I'm sure there's a plenty of you people out there who need some help today. Don't delay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't delay. And I think what's really great, Anna, what I can appreciate with the work that you're doing is that you're creating an environment that very much sounds it's judgment free, right? Come where you are now. Let's get that clarity. Let's get that awareness, and let's create a customized plan that works for you for today, but also for your future. Because I think there's oftentimes when we get into some of that spending, a lot of my work is around conflict, right? So if you give me a mic, I'm going to talk about it. But oftentimes we are making those spending choices because sometimes we don't want to deal with other things, right? And I think being able to have someone like you who's gone through and has different life experiences is what we really value here. at the podcast is amazing. So I am going to reinforce, people, we are here to bring you these educational type conversations, but we really can appreciate the lived experience and the value that our guests bring. And so please share, like, comment. And also, Barbara, what I saw is they have a brand new feature on YouTube called Hype. So you can hype up this video as well, and share it with those who you really care about, and get Anna and all the great work that she's doing out there.
Ladies, 40% of you make more money than your spouses. This is a recent number I just looked up. Spend it wisely, save it properly, and have fun. Thank you again for joining us on Optimize Her Too here on the YouTube channel. We will see you on March 17th. That's St. Patty's Day. See you then. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Thank you, Anna Felix. Always a pleasure to speak with you.